It's 10 p.m. You've been thinking about this decision for 3 weeks. Your spouse is tired of hearing about it. Your friends have offered the same advice 4 different times. You open Claude. You type out the situation. Claude responds with something thoughtful and supportive. You feel better. 3 weeks later, you make a worse decision than you would have made with friction. Because what you got from Claude wasn't advice, it was company. This is the first episode in a new thread on the channel called the Advisor Thread. Every episode in it is about one specific failure mode in how people use Claude for high-stakes thinking and the move that closes the gap. This one is the foundation, the thing you have to understand before any of the others land. Let's start with what you actually want from Claude when you're thinking through a real decision. You want validation when the idea is good so you can commit with conviction. You want honest pushback when the idea is shaky so you can see what you're missing. You want the courage to be told no when the idea is genuinely bad so you don't spend a year on the wrong thing. That's the whole job of an advisor. A real advisor does all 3. They confirm what's strong. They surface what's weak. They tell you no when no is the right answer. The trick isn't that they refuse to validate. The trick is that their yes means something because their no is also on the table. Claude's default isn't designed for that. Claude is optimized for being helpful. That objective is good for almost everything you'd use Claude for. Drafting an email, writing code, summarizing a transcript, researching an idea. It just happens to be exactly wrong for the case where you need an advisor instead of an assistant. A helpful default says encouraging things about your idea because that's what helpful sounds like. The yes is unreliable not because Claude is lying to you, but because the yes was free. It didn't cost anything to produce. It would have been produced whether your idea was good or bad. The fix is to change the assignment. You don't take the default and try to read between the lines. You give Claude an assignment that forces a different shape of response. So here's the move. Every time you're using Claude to think about something real, you need it to do 3 things on demand. 1. Confirm what's good with structured advocacy. Not flattery, not a polite mention. Actual argument for why the idea has real strengths. 2. Show you what you're missing, specifically, not as a hedge, not as a generic have you considered, as a named gap with the reason it matters. 3. Tell you when it's wrong, and tell you which of the 3 you actually got. The committed verdict at the end is what makes the whole thing useful. If Claude is only doing one of these, you don't have an advisor, you have company. Let me show you what that looks like in practice. I'll use a real example. I'm going to pretend I'm thinking about launching a new paid product and I want Claude's input. On the left, what default Claude does. On the right, what Claude does when I use the prompt I'm about to give you. Default Claude reads the proposal. Default Claude says the idea has real strengths, mentions a couple of considerations, and ends on something encouraging. Default Claude is warm. Default Claude is supportive. Default Claude has told me what I already wanted to hear. Claude with the prompt reads the same proposal. Claude with the prompt produces the strongest case for the idea, the strongest case against the idea, and then tells me which case it finds more convincing and why. The for case includes things I hadn't articulated. The against case names a structural risk I'd been avoiding. The verdict is specific. Now I can see the decision. The difference isn't that the second Claude is harsh. The difference is that the second Claude is useful. Here's the prompt. One prompt. I'm going to give it to you in full because the whole episode is built around it, and because I want you to be able to use it tonight. Before you respond to my actual question, give me the strongest case for and the strongest case against this idea. Then tell me which one you find more convincing and why. Then I'll ask my real question. That's it. 6 sentences. You paste it before you put your real question, and Claude does both halves before it gets anywhere near the response you would have gotten by default. 3 things are happening when you use this prompt. The first half forces Claude to articulate the case for properly. Most defaults gesture at the strengths of an idea without committing to them. The for case in this prompt is structured advocacy, not flattery. The second half forces Claude to articulate the case against properly. Without this instruction, the case against tends to come out as a sandwich of mild concerns between 2 pieces of encouragement. With this instruction, it comes out as actual opposition. The third half forces Claude to take a side. This is the part that matters. A real advisor commits. They don't give you both arguments and let you pick. They tell you what they think and why, and then you can disagree with them if you want. This last step is where the prompt converts from a balanced overview to a useful judgment. You'll know it worked when one of the cases is uncomfortable to read. That's the signal. Use this prompt for any decision that's bigger than the next email you have to send. Pricing, hiring, whether to take the meeting, whether to launch the product, whether to keep the contract, whether to move cities. The decisions where you've already been thinking about it for a while, where the cost of being wrong is real, and where you've started getting tired of running it past the same 3 people in your life. You don't need this prompt for tactical questions. You need it for the questions where you can feel yourself pre-deciding what answer you want to hear. That last sentence is the test. If you can feel that pull, this is the prompt. When you start using this, 3 things will happen in this order. First, you'll notice the for case sounds like advocacy you didn't know you wanted. It will articulate things you'd been feeling about the idea but hadn't put words to. That alone is worth the prompt. Second, you'll notice the against case is sharper than what your friends have been telling you. Your friends are being polite. Claude with the prompt isn't. Third, you'll notice that the verdict at the end is sometimes wrong, and that doesn't matter. The point isn't that Claude's verdict is right. The point is that you now have the structured material to form your own. What you've actually built with this prompt is a sparring partner, someone you can think against. The verdict is just a starting position you push back on. The objection people raise to this is that the case for and case against feel performed. That Claude is just generating arguments because you asked it to, not because it actually believes them. Here's the move. You're not looking for Claude to believe anything. You're looking for the strongest version of each side to be visible to you. The same way a lawyer working a case generates the best argument for their client, whether they personally agree with the client or not. You're using Claude as a steel manning machine for both sides of your own decision. Whether the steel manning is sincere is irrelevant. The output is real material you can think with. Nobody asks whether their lawyer's opening statement is sincere. They ask whether it's the strongest version of the case. Same logic. Validation isn't the problem. Indiscriminate validation is. The job is to make Claude's yes mean something. This prompt is the start of that. This is the gateway episode for the advisor thread. There are more episodes coming and a paid product later in the year that go much deeper. How to pressure test your pricing with Claude. How to use Claude when you're deciding whether to quit your job. The 2-pass advisor move. When Claude is performing pushback rather than actually pushing back. If those topics are useful to you, the rest of this thread is going to be useful to you. The advisor thread will keep dropping in alongside the other episodes on this channel. You'll know it's an advisor one because the accent on the slides will be warm orange, the way this episode is. For tonight, the prompt is enough. Use it on the next decision you've been turning over. See what comes back. That's the episode. See you in the next one.